So two things I want to talk about. The first is this idea that you don't like the government insisting upon more graphic warnings on cigarettes. Well, for the record, I do not believe that corporations are persons, and as such, I do not believe they have civil rights, specifically freedom of speech. I think it's perfectly appropriate for the government to insist on warning labels on products that kill people, okay? And if the simple text doesn't seem to be very effective and making it graphic will discourage more people from smoking, I'm all for it. Where do we end? Where does it stop? Well, you tell me. When do we put an end to smoking? All right, that's my goal. I don't want anyone to smoke. I want smoking to be completely eliminated. I want people to be disgusted enough with it that they never want to smoke, never want to start. But, you know, you talk about, well, it won't affect people's opinions. Well, it's certainly not going to affect the opinionated, okay? The opinionated have already formed their opinions. And a lot of times they form opinions without even consciously going through any sort of rational process. Okay, more graphic warning labels if it discourages kids from smoking, discourages teens from smoking, people who perhaps do not have any sort of strong opinion on the matter already, then I'm all for it. I want smoking eliminated. Okay, don't want to make it illegal. I just think that as corporations, we are at a severe disadvantage if we're relying on freedom of speech where corporations who sell toxic products have got very well-funded propaganda campaigns, and the opposition is basically whoever can cough up enough dough to raise a protest, okay? So with corporations against the common man, it's not a fair fight. I don't believe in freedom of speech at all right? And I think anything that we as a government do to impose our speech, to let the people who buy that product know the truth, to label that product, I think that is a legitimate use of the government, and I don't think it's an infringement of freedom of speech, because frankly, I don't think corporations have any freedom of speech, okay? And where does it end? You tell me, when does smoking end? That's where it ends, all right? The other thing is, you know, you seem to lump in Marxism and everything else with specific leaders, with Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin, and certainly they were brutal leaders, okay? And I do not agree with the conclusions of Marxism. There's a lot of Marxism I do not like, okay? But to throw the entire thing out completely without even considering any of it is, well, it's a term for it. It's called throwing the baby out with the bathwater, all right? Now, certainly there have been a lot of failures of Marxism, and certainly his conclusions are wrong. And I've done videos about where I disagree with Marx's conclusions about class struggle, and I don't think they're valid. I don't think we want a classless society. I've talked at length about that, but I don't believe that the failures of some of the misguided implementations of communism mean that all that Marx wrote about is wrong and invalid. I think Marx had some very good observations, and I don't think because those experiments failed means that all his observations were wrong. I'm a pragmatist. I am more likely to accept someone's observations as legitimate and perhaps discount their conclusions. I feel the same way about Marx. I don't like his conclusions, but I think he raised some very legitimate observations. And just lumping anyone who mentions Marx in with these murderous leaders, I think is very misguided, very misguided. I think it's deliberate ignorance. It's willful ignorance to use something like that in order to not only avoid educating yourself on the subject, but to try and persuade others to remain ignorant as well. Okay, it's something I see a lot. It's demonizing the other side. Okay, it's demonizing, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're not trying to understand or empathize or to see the other perspective in any way, shape, or form. You're demonizing the opposition. Okay, and that's exactly the same sin that communism did, okay, is demonizing the opposition. If you want to know what causes mass murder, that's it. It's not communism. It's not Nazism. It's not capitalism. It's not a lot of things, not religion. It's demonizing the opposition that it brings about those fatal results, all right? So I would recommend that before you start spewing off about Marxism, that at least you read a little of it, okay, and understand what it's about. So I doubt you do. You certainly don't let on that you know anything other than the, shall we say, conventional free market economics, which is unfortunate. And demonizing Marxism is just an attempt to remain willfully ignorant, in my opinion, okay? So that's all I'm going to say for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.